What was the name of the company, the China company?
Harbin Pharmaceutical Group.
Harbin Pharmaceutical Group.
Did you have a lot of thoughts about this?
No, I'm not surprised.
No.
GNC was in major trouble. I did wonder, like, why the investment in GNC with retail being in such trouble, but it looks like they've expanded their footprint, got rid of a lot of the independent retail, like the franchisee.
Yeah, there's a lot of corporate stores.
And I imagine the plan to go on bases is a really good plan, because if you're working with the government, like, there's no other really recognized supplement chain, nothing like on that scale of GNC. So then you get put on the base where you're kind of have an audience capture.
Yep.
So that makes sense. I mean, if you can, so is China, is it a plan to get military intelligence and have this? I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're there and they could,
Right.
they could get that information. I think it's more of it was very strategic as a company, to buy GNC outright, probably super cheap. Was it $780 million? But for a brand that big, think of just what
$770 million.
Think of just what they're online, what their websites.
That's true.
Not to mention all those stores. Now they're. I imagine a lot of those stores were failing under, not doing well. But you get, how many stores they said they had?
Well, on the bases there was 86.
86 stores on the base.
Yeah.
I mean, total they bought everything.
Right, they bought the entire thing. Yeah,
780 million. You have all of it. The biggest name in supplements, and then you have 87 bases with the GNC. Some of them with multiple GNCs, wasn't it?
I'm sure. I mean, have you been on a military base before, or has it been a while? Yeah, I mean, they're these. I don't know if I want to call them a PX or whatever, but they're just basically a shopping mall that has all kinds of different things in it.
Commissary or PX? Or is it the same thing?
It might be the same thing.
Military people help us out.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should just backtrack since we got into it. We're back making another episode. But you sent a bunch of us last night a podcast episode from a former CIA. There's no such thing as former CIA, by the way. The President's Daily Brief by Mike Baker. Do you listen to that every day?
No, it was sent to me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to pull up the title of the episode here because it is interesting, and it got me just thinking about things kind of within the military world and fitness and whatnot that I was going to talk about. And I'm sure, our huge military crowd might be offended by what we say. I don't think so, though. Where's it at here? Okay, it is how GNC is giving China a foothold in U.S. military bases. So it was an interesting little snippet he did on it, because GNC went bankrupt or filed for bankruptcy in 2020, and then this Harbin Pharmaceutical Group bought 40% of them
prior to that.
Prior to that,
Yeah.
And then in 2020 they bought
control.
Yeah,
they
of
bought all of it.
And Harbin Pharmaceutical Group is a Chinese company, but over in China, everything is basically owned by the government. Mm-hmm. I think he said in the podcast that it's a partially state-owned pharmaceutical group. Yeah. But if you know anything about communism, or just probably how China runs things over there, they have full control of everything.
They can get whatever they want from that company.
They're a quasi-communist, capitalist country.
They're kicking ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was interesting about what he was talking about in that was it being on GNC's being in military bases. They have some kind of a contract with them. I mean, I remember visiting bases when my brother was in the Marine Corps, and there was always GNCs in there. So I was like, well, that makes sense. And then, they're contracted. So what a great contract to have with the military. But what he brought up in that podcast was interesting, because you think about, well, what's the big deal if a Chinese-owned company owns GNC? Well, he was saying that they could be using it to a strategic advantage of, you get this data on people inside the military of, I think he mentioned, like, you can get all kinds of data off of, like, their lifestyles, their health or whatever, whether, what they're buying. Are they
their
buying
card info, their phone number, their whereabouts, like
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
He even mentioned something about like you may even know when they're on deployment, stuff like that. So it's interesting because you're kind of, what can you use that for? I guess to a strategic. You don't ever see China or any other countries like coming over here and attacking us, but it is where would that come in handy, or that type of information would come in handy. But building that type of profile off of people, off our military, may give you some kind of a strategic advantage over our guys. So I don't know, but it was interesting to hear about.
It was just kind of wild that we allow access like that, almost like as an oopsie, to their GNCs are already on the base, and then you have a public sale of the company with no oversight of who's buying that company. So now you have a Chinese-held company on every U.S. military base, essentially.
Well, and then everything that goes inside of a store, like who knows? We don't know like where the computer's coming from. I'm sure they're probably something they get here in America, but maybe not. Maybe they are doing some kind of like top tier espionage.
I doubt that GNC is the first line of espionage for the CCP.
Sure,
but just the fact that they have it is crazy, and that GNC is this at one time this great American company. That's how I started in supplements.
So that was my first job too.
Yeah. I mean, I worked retail in college selling supplements. I should say I sold supplements prior. My dad had a gym that we sold stuff, but that was minor compared to like getting in a retail setting, GNC in the mall,
having to know the product.
Yeah, that was really the intro, and that was kind of in the last heyday of GNC, where there were a ton of franchisees. It was half franchise, privately owned stores that were paying a franchise fee to GNC corporate, and the other half were corporate stores, and that's just it changed a lot over the years. And then as the retail footprint for GNC declined, then this company kind of came in and saved this bankrupt GNC. The weird thing about GNC is when you think about GNC, I think a lot of people, correctly so, associate GNC with kind of high-priced supplements and
Gold card days.
Yeah, gold card days.
They don't do those anymore.
Odd sales and stuff. But what GNC should have been, if GNC wanted to, what GNC should have been is like the Walmart of supplements. I don't mean like cheap, shitty stuff. They have more buying power than any supplement purchaser on earth. And I think while they did hammer down prices, they didn't pass those along to customers like a Walmart would to really grow their footprint and really get people in. Instead, I think they screwed their franchises over. They charged a premium you had to order through GNC, so they charged a premium, making money on all those products to get them in. And then they charged 9% on the back end as a royalty fee. Yep. Not only that, regardless of where you were in the country, you could be in the middle of Kansas, where I was, you could be in Miami, you could be in Oregon, completely demographics as a customer, but you had to have the same floor setup, the same end caps. But what if you're on a college campus versus you're in a retirement city, the items you'd want to carry would be very different. And they didn't give those franchisees an option. So you ended up having it ended up being a bad model. You're overpaying for product that they got very cheap. So they're kind of raking you on that end. You're getting hit on the back end. Everything you sell, 9% of your margin is gone because the GNC is taking that too, not just the franchise fee, that's the royalty fee. Yep. And then on top of it, you had to carry all these GNC products that you may or may not ever sell. So a lot of them is overhead that's sitting on the shelf and expiring. Good footprint, good start. Bad model long term, especially once the internet came along. And then there is some if you want like an inside GNC perspective, this is kind of a conspiracy maybe by a lot. I knew a lot of franchisees, and a lot of those stores, if they didn't close, were bought by GNC corporate. Right. Sometimes for pennies on the dollar. Like can I get out of it without owing money for inventory sitting on the shelves? So there's some of those franchisees felt that it was on purpose. The increased prices on the front end, franchise through the back end. So you just like, fuck, I want to get the hell out of this. I'm not making any money. The store's worth nothing to sell it. And corporate comes along and says, well, I'll bail you out. Yeah. I'll pay off your debt and buy your inventory. You walk with $5,000. Yeah. You're like, take it, take the store. So GNC ended up there's very few franchisees now most of these stores are corporate. There's a handful.
Can you still apply to be a franchisee? Do you know?
I think you can. I mean, I know even around us,
I know they
around
exist.
here. Yeah, even around here, I know that there is some franchisees. Yeah, that is how Titan started. Was in the GNC franchise systems as far as distribution. That's where we started.
Didn't they have I know that's how you guys started, but wasn't there something that came along the way? Didn't you always have to become an approved vendor through GNC, or how did that work?
For GNC corporate, you did.
Okay.
But franchisees kind of had a loophole where you could do a direct purchase. You could purchase outside the GNC system and bring stuff in. That's like we sold, this is back before it was a brand at all. The GNC I worked for, we had found like Burt's Bees products. Oh, okay. He had found them on a trip to Colorado, and so we sold those before, like, you know, it was the first time I ever heard of it was brought into the store. So you could find unique products, you know, even local stuff. You want to carry local stuff. There was a way you could do that, and it's kind of what brought down not the franchise system, but a lot of the turmoil was like NDS, Nutritional Delivery System. Yep. So Corey Weedle up in Omaha, he had GNCs, but then also started NDS, Nutritional Delivery Systems, and sold only to GNC franchisees. He wasn't approved. But then you have a GNC store owner with his own brand that he's selling in his stores. Obviously, that's a big conflict of interest. That became a lawsuit. He lost his stores, but then started Complete Nutrition blew up Complete Nutrition all over. And then Complete Nutrition is kind of another tragic story of they're like used car salesmen, pressure sales. And are there any Completes left?
I'd
like to know how many there were.
Complete Healths. I think they've all gone away from Complete Nutrition, but some you can even tell. Yeah, I'm trying to think. There were some stores in Virginia that I was prospecting once that I can't even think of what they're called now, but you could tell they used to be a Complete Nutrition. You could tell by the store.
All house brands.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. House brands. A lot of markup, high margin, quality products.
Yeah. I remember working I worked at a corporate GNC in college during the school year, and then when I came home for the summers, I worked at the franchise GNC, so it was different. But I remember one time they had setting out like it was a catalog, and it was showing you the margins that you were making on these products, and it was insane. Yeah, it was crazy the margins you could make on some of the product that you were selling. It was like, oh, I see where the bad rep comes from sometimes. So
yeah, we had that was back in the like pro hormones and kind of the Wild West of stuff. But that was just when I was working there. Probably around this, not too far after you were. I would have been like 2001 to 2004 or 5 in there when I was working there, and that was kind of the last.
Yeah, 2012, the one in Lincoln that I worked at, we didn't have any pro hormones or anything like that.
So that was a corporate store.
Yeah, it was a corporate store. The franchise store, I don't think we did. Because if we did, I would have taken them. So I mean, there
was a lot of brands that came out of that system, though. I mean, if you like people that don't know, like Cellucor came out of that systems. There's some that came and went. Biorhythm.
Biorhythm, Afterglow, right?
Afterglow. I mean, they actually had some decent products. But there were a lot of brands. I mean, just like, brands that were built inside of Amazon. There were brands that have been built inside GNC. So kind of to come full circle, to go from that and see these, families that own several, I knew guys that had 12 GNCs and really did well through that franchise system, to then that kind of the collapse of the franchise. And then shortly following after that, I guess a decade later, then corporate goes there, get bankrupt, and now you have this complete turnaround from this all-American business supporting families and local retail to it's owned by a Chinese company, and they're worried that there may be some espionage going on military bases. Fucking nuts.
It brings
we don't
back
sell
to
the
that.
GNC, by the way. No, we don't.
Never would. Not those
Never
commies.
Would. Call Tyler if you're a franchisee.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, coming back to that podcast. Like, I understand what he's saying, like some of the biometrics that you could maybe glean off of purchases. And then I would assume that if there really is some kind of espionage going on, that, you can hack into people's stuff based off their cards, or maybe, just even the crazy, spyware that's out there that Pegasus is one of them that I can think of. If whoever's sending you that Pegasus, software, virus, whatever it is, you don't have to click
Pegasus
on.
sounds like a gay website.
Yeah, well, it's not. It might be actually. I don't know. But that software itself, normally you think of when you get a virus on your phone or something like that, you have to click on a link or something. But this is like they can just send you a text message and then it's on your phone. Mm-hmm. So there could be that type of stuff going on.
See, that when I first listened to it, I'm like, they're not. I mean, they're not using GNC. Then I have to remember.
But every strategic advantage you could get, maybe they are.
Right, and then I have to remember, Brian, you're not very smart. These people are way smarter than you. You sell protein for a living, and like you said, why stop at spyware and stuff? Like there's all kinds of stuff.
He mentioned in the lead up to that, the big thing that had been going on. I mean, it's been going on for years now, but like the farmland that is owned by China and that just so happens to be next to like all these military bases. So if you have a legitimate in to a military base, I could see why they would.
Where all the jack soldiers are.
Exactly.
Yeah. All the ones shopping at GNC.
Yeah, definitely. Which was actually leads me to what I was thinking earlier, just off this topic, was the physical fitness standards of the military. We need to have Jordan in the next time he's here. We can talk about that. Because it would be, I always wonder why we can't get enough people in that runs like the curriculum for that type of stuff to just make it like the most difficult standards possible. I know you can't like make it so difficult that you don't have a force, but you shouldn't see, in my opinion, you should not be seeing obese military.
I mean, what you said, but it wasn't that we should make it so difficult we didn't have a force. We weren't going to have a force. Like we weren't going to have people. So even at the special operator level, they've had to lower standards in the military to get. I mean, right now, I don't think the military is a real hot item for kids probably getting out of high school and stuff. No shade on the military. I think you can make a great career out of it, and it really should be an option. I mean, you get life skills, labor skills, all that from it. Even if you just go 4 years.
Yeah,
but probably not the most popular option for a lot of kids. And then the fact that you don't have people, you don't have the numbers that you need, and then the people that you do have coming are not in good shape.
Right.
So you can't keep a force. I think the idea is let's lower the standards, get them in, and then we'll get in shape.
Right.
That's not exactly what happens.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I've been on enough military bases, like they do have really good like health plexes. There's like CrossFit-esque type gyms that are on there. You'll walk around a military base, you will see plenty of jacked people. Mm-hmm. You'll see also plenty of scrawny or overweight looking people too. And that doesn't necessarily, mean that those people are in combat ready.
Right. That's kind of they're not ready for war. If your military is your war fighting machine.
Right.
And I've heard, I don't know this. This is I have heard this from very credible sources. I've not been on an army base. But I've heard like army bases are welfare systems.
Yeah.
People find out you can join the army. It's super easy to get in. You get everything paid for. You're there. So single women, sign up. And you have these, not like, hey, I want to serve my country, but I want to be served.
Yeah.
And so you have kind of it's become kind of a welfare system.
Yeah.
In some cases.
And it's true because I mean, I have family in the military or been in the military. I've heard the same type of stories that are just crazy. The type of people that are in. So it's not any shade to people in the military. It's just those types of people. I'm sure there's
a lot, maybe the majority of people in the military.
Yeah. And they hate that too.
I was going to say that more than us are pissed. They want a high standard. They want the esteem that, military that they signed up for.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. We should get Jordan on so we can talk about the physical fitness standards. Because I have a buddy that's in the National Guard, and I remember him just complaining about the standards. And I think this is up in Nebraska. I think he even helped kind of rewrite some curriculum for maybe just like that area. Mm-hmm. But it's just the stories you hear from the type of
people. If you were going to join the military, what branch would you be in and why?
I'd have to just do the Marine Corps family because my dad and brother were in the Marines.
Like like that would be the most fun, or that would be the.
I don't know if being in the military would be fun.
It's
one of those things like when I was going to college and my original major was criminal justice, and everybody around was like, you don't want to do, like all the cops that I knew were like, you don't want to do that. You don't go to that major. Then when I transferred, and I was like, they didn't have criminal justice, so I was like, what do I want to do? Exercise science. Then when I came back and told people that, and they're like, you don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. So I had spoke to my brother a few times about possibly joining the reserves or the National Guard, post-college, and he pretty much just like, don't do it.
Really?
He's like, you don't want to do it. He goes, if you do military at all, go active duty, because you're going to hate that, the national or the reserves or something takes, a weekend of your life away, and then 2 weeks. It's just more of a nuisance. But again, I know plenty of people that are in the reserves or National Guard. Right now, so it's just all perspective.
I always thought Coast Guard. I would do Coast Guard. No? Well, here can I? I don't come from military background, some family in the military, but I know nothing. Here's my reasoning why. I get to stay home. Okay, I don't know the odds of getting attacked here at home, but I got it. You guys, good luck. I got it locked down here. Yeah, I got it locked down. Enjoy the desert.
We'll patrol the coast.
But I got the coast. And then I do think it'd be fun because let's say you're like stationed in San Diego or something, beautiful weather, you're on the coast. And then you could be in one of those fucking gunships going after cartel members, a little shitty Zodiacs.
That's true.
Fucking zooming around with, you have all, it's not like you're fighting another military, you're fighting these piece of shit cartel members, and they're, it's not even them, huh?
The cartel members have families.
Yeah, but they're sending like fucking drug mules and shit over with, I'm going to catch their submarines, their shitty ass submarines where they're breathing smoke and stuff and trying to get on the shore. I would have zero, open your Zen, bud, no one can hear it. Get your fix. Yeah,
nicotine's good for you.
Yeah, there's no other time to do it. Jesus fucking
Producer Luke.
Yeah. Speaking of fentanyl, you got to get your fix. But yeah, like I would have no problem.
I couldn't do the Coast Guard because there's nothing that seems more terrifying than being on a giant ship in the middle of the ocean. Now I know that probably sounds more like the Navy. I know, but like you're still going out there.
I think even the Navy, again, like, good luck, guys.
Yeah. Now you got the Houthis like flying suicide drones at you and all that stuff.
Yeah, and they have those guns that shoot 100 rounds a second, just fucking laser beaming them out of the sky.
They were
shooting.
A few times.
They're shooting Iranian rockets down that are going from Iran to Israel from the ocean.
I know.
Tell me when the last time a U.S. destroyer was taken out. The USS Arizona, okay,
like sank.
Yeah,
yeah, and then Pearl Harbor probably. There's
gotta be more. There's some since then, but
there's got to be.
But my point is, you're pretty safe.
The USS Liberty. Everybody look that one up. 1967. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is 2025.
We're getting way off topic here, but one of the Houthis shot some rockets at us, and they had to do such a sharp turn. They lost two planes over the side of them.
2 planes?
Yeah. F-16s, I'm pretty sure.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
Ratchet strap those down.
Yeah, I know.
I had to buy a new air conditioner. I thought it was expensive. Imagine having to pay for that F-16.
You are paying for it.
That's true.
Don't worry, you paid for it.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Someone gonna tie that? Oh man. Yeah.
Anyways,
somebody get a boat.
Get a boat. What are we ending on here? The fact that if you buy from GNC, you're supporting
communist China.
China.
You are a communist Chinese supporter.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to know if you were to sell Titan to a country, which one are you selling Titan to?
Ooh.
If we're to sell Titan to like a foreign country,
what country?
China. They're gonna pay the best.
Saudi Arabia, they're more high end.
Saudis, yeah.
We could slap a nice gold label on these. They'd love that.
Turban.
Yeah. I think that's where we ended, everybody.
Back next week, everybody.
Yep. Later.